liked working the night shift, but back then it was all I had. I was a janitor in a commercial building downtown, one of those old ones that still has a double-door elevator with a metal panel. It was almost always empty at night, just the security guard and me. The company hired cleaning services from 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. so as not to disturb the offices. The lobby cameras always showed the same thing: the doorman dozing off, me mopping the floor, and the service elevator going up and down on its own every now and then, which to a certain extent was normal. These older elevators often jerk, turn on lights by themselves, wearing these, but it started happening too often. In the first week, the doorman even joked about it. He said the elevator had a mind of its own. We laughed, but then it got weird. The elevator would go up to the 6th floor, stop, stay there for a few minutes, and then go back down to the ground floor. Nobody got out. Nobody got in. Once I thought it was some employee who had forgotten something in the office and was coming back in the middle of the night. I went to take a look out of curiosity. When the door opened, there was no one there. Just the smell of cleaning product that I myself had used a few hours before. In the following days, this was repeated, except that the elevator started stopping in the basement, and I avoided going down there. It was dark, stuffy, full of the smell of mold and grease. The doorman said it was my imagination, but one night he also heard a noise coming from there. It was like someone walking fast, with a kind of shuffling step, and then the sound of metal banging. I went to see it. I stayed in the reception area listening on the radio. He came back pale, saying that he had seen the elevator open, light on, but no one inside. We noted it in the report and notified the building manager, who ordered a review of the system. The technician came, fiddled with it, tested it, and said everything was fine. But after that, the elevator's comings and goings became more regular, as if someone was actually controlling it. I started noting the times, always after 2 o'clock, always the same interval. It would go up stop for about 2 minutes, go down to the basement, stay there for a while longer, and then come back empty. In the 3rd week, I started noticing a detail. The elevator only did this when I was alone on the floor. The security guard would sometimes go outside to smoke, and that's when the noise would start. I didn't have the courage to go see, but one day, curiosity got the better of me. It was a Thursday, around 2:30 in the morning. I was cleaning the floor on the 6th floor, the top floor, when I heard the sound of the elevator door slamming shut downstairs. I thought the security guard had come back early. I called on the radio. He replied that he was still on the ground floor smoking. The noise repeated itself. I grabbed the cloth and went to the elevator. The doors opened, and there he was, a man standing there, looking at the floor with a black bag in his hand. He was startled when he saw me, but tried to disguise it, saying he had gone up to the wrong floor. I asked if he worked there. He quickly replied yes, that he was from the accounting department on the 6th floor. I found it strange, because the accounting firm had moved a few months ago. Before I could say anything, he pressed the ground floor button and the elevator went down. When the doors closed, I had that bad feeling that I should have done something, but I stood there, listening to the sound of the motor going away. The next morning, I talked to the security guard about it. He said he didn't see anyone leaving, and that the cameras showed the elevator stop between the ground floor and the basement for about 5 minutes, without opening the door, without anything. The next day, the same thing. He would enter at different times, always with that black bag, stay inside for a while, and disappear, and always leave. The elevator stopped between 2 floors, as if he wanted to hide what he was doing. One day I decided to press the button while it was stopped. The panel went blank, as if it had been disconnected from the power. I felt the motor vibrate, but it didn't go up or down. When the security guard checked the power panel, everything was normal. From then on, I started to be afraid to use that elevator alone. I climbed the stairs carrying buckets and products. I preferred to get tired than to be locked in there, imagining who might appear when the doors opened. In the 6th week, the building manager called the security personnel to review the recordings. They saw everything. The man appearing around 2 o'clock, always by the service elevator, leaning against the wall, head down, able to go and stand there for a few minutes, and leave quickly, looking around. The strangest thing is that his name wasn't in the entry registration system. No valid badge, no entry recorded. That's when it clicked. That guy had no business being there anymore. But even knowing that, he kept showing up. Sometimes I pretended not to see, just observing from afar, praying that the elevator wouldn't stop on the floor where I was. One night, he went down to the basement and stayed for almost half an hour. When he left, the security guard saw him passing through the garage and leaving without speaking to anyone. After that, the elevator started malfunctioning for real. It would freeze, the lights would go out, and it would stop in the middle of the floors. The technician said it wasn't an electrical problem. It seemed like something manual, as if someone was turning off the system from the inside. We asked them to change the locks on the doors leading to the well. Even so, every now and then, someone would leave one of them unlocked. One Monday morning, when I arrived, the watchman called me over to see something. The elevator was stopped between the ground floor and the basement, just like before. But something was different. A white cloth had fallen in front of it with a dark, grease-like mark, and a very low metallic noise was coming from inside, as if something was slowly shaking. He called for backup to open the panel, but they decided to wait until dawn. I spent the rest of the night looking at the closed elevator, sitting in the reception area, trying to understand what that man was looking for there. When my shift ended, I left early. On the way, I looked back and saw the elevator open by itself, as if someone had gotten out, but no one got out. That was the last night I worked there, before they asked me to go back to the day shift. But the security guard stayed, and what he found later made me realize that the fear I felt was not an exaggeration. A few days after that early morning, the building manager called me asking me to go there in the morning. He said they had found some things in the basement and wanted me to confirm if it was cleaning supplies. When I arrived, there was already a police car in front of the building. The security guard was leaning against the wall, smoking non-stop. He seemed like a different man. I went in and saw the technicians working on the elevator structure. They had opened the shaft door with a large flashlight, and you could see some boxers stacked at the bottom, somewhat covered in dust and grease. They were cardboard boxers, all identical, sealed with wide tape, but torn at the ends, as if someone had tampered with them several times. The building manager said that the maintenance crew found them when they went to check the brake system. They said that the space down there was deeper than normal, like an improvised storage room. I froze because only one person could have access to that. Someone who spent the whole night in the building without anyone noticing. When they removed the first box, there was that strong smell of chemicals mixed with damp paper. Inside, there were keys, a bunch of doors, drawers, cabinets, all labeled with room names, and even people's names. On Monday, they found envelopes with copies of documents, old ID badges, and some photos. Photos of women who worked there, printed photos, taken up close inside the building. The building manager ordered everything to stop and called the police. While they were going down to isolate the place, the security guard pulled me aside and said, "It's him, Mrs. Need, the same guy you saw in the elevator." He said that 2 days earlier he saw the man going in again, but this time he stayed longer. The guard waited to see if he would leave, but the elevator was stuck between the ground floor and the basement for almost 40 minutes. When he went down to check, the door was ajar and the panel was off. It could dead out, but no one answered. He thought the man had left. On the next shift, the elevator started working again on its own. That same day, the camera footage was reviewed again. The man only appeared in some parts, as if he knew where the cameras were capturing it. The last recording showed him entering the elevator at 2:11 a.m. with the same black bag. The elevator went down, stopped between the two floors, and remained there. No record of him exiting. None at all. The police spent almost the entire day there. They opened all the boxers, collected the items, and then sealed off the area. They said the man had been an employee of a company on the 6th floor, fired months ago. He worked in building maintenance, so he knew the whole system. He had the key to almost everything, including the emergency compartment in the shaft. He used the elevator as a hiding place, spending the early mornings there, collecting copies of keys, documents, and, apparently, spying on the female employees. No one knows how long he did this. After the discovery, the building was closed for a few days. When they reopened, the service elevator was shut down for a complete system replacement. The security company changed the staff and installed sensors on all accesses to the basement. I asked to change my schedule permanently. I went back to the day shift, but I still ran into the security guard a few times. He said that in the early morning, the new elevator would sometimes stop on its own between the same floors, and that the panel would light up, show the number 6, and then go out again. They said it was an electrical fault, but no one else wanted to work the night shift in that building. A month later, The company on the 6th floor received a letter with no return address. Inside was a single key, taped to a piece of paper. The label said file room, old access. The room no longer existed since the renovation. That's when I understood that he still had something to hide, or that somehow he never completely left. I don't even like walking past that building. Every time the elevator goes down on its own in the surveillance video that appears on the news, I remember those boxers, the smell of grease, and the feeling that someone was there all the time, listening, watching. And the worst part is, thinking that if I hadn't called that elevator that night, he might still be there, hidden between the ground floor and the basement. Music, I've always worked in security, and of all the nights I've spent in an empty building, this one left the biggest mark on me. It was a large department store, one of those that had everything, you know? But that branch had been closed for months. It had been used as a storage facility until they decided what to do with the building. At the time, the outsourced company put me there to cover a month of night shifts. I was alone from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. The place was huge, cold, and damp, with a smell of mold mixed with cheap disinfectant. The lighting system was old, and I had to turn on each sector individually when I was patrolling. The freight elevator was the only one that worked, because they used it to take boxers to the basement, where they also kept some cleaning products and tools. The first week was nothing out of the ordinary. I spent the early mornings walking back and forth, drinking coffee, and listening to the sound of the rain hitting the broken windows of the storage facility. But there was one night that has stuck in my mind to this day. It was a Thursday. It was raining heavily, and the power had already fluctuated about 3 times. I remember finishing a patrol and going to the module near the elevator. When I looked at the panel, I saw that the elevator was stopped in the basement, but no one had come down. At first I thought it might be a defect, because that panel was always malfunctioning. Even so, I decided to check it out. I pressed the button and the elevator went up, kind of heavy, creaking. When the door opened, the smell hit me so hard that I even took a step back, into a strong kind of chemical. It seemed like a mixture of alcohol and concentrated cleaning product. I went down to the basement to see what it was. Down there it was dark, with that dripping sound in the background. The lights were fluorescent, and one of them was flickering nonstop. There were a bunch of stacked boxers and some blue plastic drums with labels that I could unread properly because of the humidity. Tudo parecia meio improvisado, como se alguém tivesse montado espaço para guardar coisa que não devia estar ali. Eu ia dar meia volta quando senti o pé grudar em algo seco no chão. Era tipo uma trilha. Começava perto dos tambores e seguia até uma parede pintada de cinza. Parecia tinta escorrida, mas a textura era diferente, áspera. Naquele momento, confesso que me deu incômodo, mas pensei que devia ser tinta velha mesmo. A parede parecia recém-pintada. Dava para ver o contraste com o resto do subsolo. Tinha até o rolo de pintura jogado num canto ainda sujo. Voltei pro módulo e anotei no relatório. Mas nada demais. No outro dia, quando passei pro supervisor, ele só disse para evitar entrar ali. Falou que aquela área era da empresa de limpeza e que o pessoal da manutenção já ia dar uma olhada. Achei estranho porque nunca vi ninguém da limpeza à noite. Só havia vestígio, pano molhado, balde, produto aberto. Nos dias seguintes, toda vez que eu passava perto do elevador, dava para sentir aquele mesmo cheiro forte e o mais esquisito. O elevador sempre parava sozinho no subsolo, mesmo quando eu deixava no térreo. Eu chegava de manhã, olhava o painel e lá estava, subsolo. Comecei a ficar com a sensação de que alguém usava o lugar sem avisar. Teve uma madrugada em que ouvi barulho lá embaixo, tipo arrasto de caixa. Peguei a lanterna e desci rápido, mas quando a porta abriu, o som parou. Olhei tudo, nada. As caixas estavam do mesmo jeito, os tambores também, mas o cheiro parecia mais forte, quase insuportável. Foi a primeira vez que pensei em pedir para sair daquele posto. Depois daquela noite, comecei a evitar o subsolo. Eu só descia se fosse realmente preciso, tipo quando o fiscal da empresa pedia uma foto do painel ou para verificar o estoque de material de limpeza. Mas sempre que eu chegava perto, o elevador descia sozinho. Era só eu chegar perto do botão, ele se movia e o cheiro parecia que tinha encharcado as paredes. Tentei comentar com o supervisor umas 2 vezes, mas ele falava que era paranoia minha, que aquilo era cheiro de produto forte mesmo. Só que eu sabia que não era. Tinha algo errado lá embaixo. Umas 2 semanas depois, a equipe da limpeza sumiu. Eram de uma terceirizada, que vinha de manhã 3 pessoas fixas, 2 mulheres e um homem. De um dia para o outro, pararam de aparecer. Perguntei para a administração e disseram que o contrato tinha sido encerrado. O mais estranho é que deixaram os materiais lá. Balde, rodinho, até uniforme com o nome da empresa dentro do armário. Ninguém recolheu nada. Pouco tempo depois, o prédio fechou de vez. As portas foram lacradas. Desligaram as luzes e colocaram corrente no portão lateral. A gente foi remanejado para outro posto. Na época eu fiquei até aliviado. Não queria mais fazer ronda naquele galpão. Meses se passaram e eu já estava em outro contrato quando vi a notícia. Passou no jornal local que um grupo de operários encontrou restos humanos dentro de uma parede durante a demolição de uma antiga loja de departamentos. O repórter dizia que os ossos estavam atrás de uma parede falsa no subsolo, junto com pedaços de tecido e embalagens de produto químico. Mostraram até o prédio. Era o mesmo. Na hora, meu corpo travou. Lembrei da parede cinza, da tinta ainda fresca, dos tambores e do barulho de caixa arrastando. Tudo fez sentido, mas de um jeito que eu não queria entender. Uns dias depois, um colega me contou que a polícia acreditava que o corpo era de uma mulher desaparecida da equipe de limpeza. Aquela que eu via todo dia nas câmeras, varrendo o corredor do térreo. Ninguém soube direito o que aconteceu, porque o caso nunca saiu com detalhes. Só disseram que o prédio tinha sido usado por mais de uma empresa terceirizada ao mesmo tempo e que os registros da equipe tinham sumido do sistema. Sumido. Eu nunca esqueci disso, principalmente do cheiro. Dizem que quando o produto é muito forte, é para disfarçar outra coisa. E talvez fosse isso mesmo. After that contract, I never again accepted a job in a place with a freight elevator. Not even if it were new. Because I know what it is like to look at the panel and see that number flashing on the floor below, knowing that nobody should be there. I was coming back from the market at the end of Friday. I had worked all day. I just wanted to get home, take a shower and lie down. The building was kinda stuffy, you know, that feeling of stagnant heat, without wind. I took the elevator, as always, carrying 2 heavy bags. I pressed the 7th floor button, where I live. The door closed normally. And that's where it started. The elevator went up for a few seconds and gave a sharp jolt, like a real jolt, like when a car sputters. At the time, I thought it was just a slight problem, but the cabin stopped halfway. I was stuck between the 7th and 8th floors, right in the gap. The panel went blank. Only the emergency button was flashing faintly. I tried to press the alarm button. Nothing. No sound. No voice. Nothing. My first reaction was to laugh nervously. I thought, oh, it'll be back soon. But time passed. About these minutes, 20, and I started sweating. The air inside was hot, with no circulation. I took off my backpack, sat on the floor to try to breathe better. I grabbed my cell phone to let the building manager know, but there was no signal, not even a single bar. And the worst part is that the elevator didn't have a window or anything. Just that weak little fan up there that made an irritating noise. After a while, I started to realize how strange the sound inside a stopped elevator is. Everything echoes. I moved the bag and it felt like I was dragging iron. I heard cracking sounds coming from the walls, like pipes expanding with the heat. Sometimes it seemed like water was dripping somewhere above me, a constant tick-tick, and each sound made me jump. I think more than an hour passed. Nobody showed up. No movement in the building. I tried banging on the door, kicking, screaming. Nothing. Just the echo of my own voice. That's when the real panic started. My head started spinning. The air was too hot. I breathed deeply and smelled a metallic, rusty smell. I thought about trying to open the door with my hands, but it wouldn't budge. When I forced it a little, I could see a tiny sliver of light coming from the crack, but it was very narrow. It seemed like something out of a bad movie, but there was nothing funny about it. Inside, time stood still. At one point, I took off my watch and left it on the floor so I wouldn't keep looking at it. I sat with my back against the wall, sweating, listening to the sound of my own heart. My cell phone started getting so hot that I turned it off so it wouldn't drain the battery unnecessarily. That's when I realized it must already be night. The building was completely silent. No flushes, no footsteps, no neighbor sounds. Just the electric hum of above the dead elevator. Around what I think was midnight, I heard a different noise. Something like a crackling sound up on the ceiling. I thought it was the system restarting, but the elevator remained motionless. Soon after, there was a faint sound, like someone dragging something in the hallway above. Slow footsteps. I immediately started banging on the door and yelling for help, but the footsteps stopped. Silence again. Total silence. The worst part is that when I stopped to listen, I swear it felt like someone was very close on the other side of the door. That feeling of presence. I waited a few seconds, held my breath. Nothing. I pressed the emergency button again. It lit up for about 2 seconds on its own. No sound, no response. Then it went out. At that point, I had an overwhelming urge to get out of there no matter what. I tried to force the door open with my fingers, screamed some more, and in the middle of it all, I felt dizzy, like my body was begging for air. I leaned against the floor, sweating cold, trying to breathe slowly. It was the first time I thought that maybe no one would show up anytime soon. After that noise on the ceiling, I lost track of time. I think it was past 1 in the morning, maybe 2. I was already a little dizzy, with a dry mouth. Sweat was running down my arms, and the heat, instead of decreasing, seemed to get worse. The floor was hot. I touched it and felt it. The wall, too. It was as if the entire elevator had turned into a closed metal box in the sun. I tried to distract myself by counting the seconds, but it was useless. All I could hear was the noise of my body, my breathing, my stomach growling, my racing heart. My head started inventing sounds, like a distant creak or someone whispering my name. But I knew it was all in my mind. Even so, every time I heard something, my body reacted as if it were real. At one point, I thought someone was knocking outside. A dry sound, 3 spaced out knocks. I called, I shouted, no answer. When I put my ear to the door, I felt a slight vibration, as if someone were walking down the hallway. I pressed the button again. Nothing. That little light on the panel turned on by itself again for a second and went out. That's all. I started talking to myself first, just to try to calm down. I kept repeating that someone would hear, that they would soon notice. Then I started talking about everything. Work, life, bills, things I had to take care of on Saturday. I talked so much that I realized I was talking to no one, and that scared me more than the heat. Around what I think was 3 a.m., I heard the footsteps in the hallway again. This time they seemed clearer, slower, more rhythmic. I called again, banged hard on the door, and I swear, the footsteps stopped right above me, at the height of the 8th floor. I could hear the floor creaking, like someone shifting their weight from one foot to the other. I stood there with my ear pressed against the wall, waiting for someone to answer. Nothing. A few seconds later, the elevator made a loud click, as if it were going to move, but it remained stuck, and the footsteps slowly moved away. That's when I broke down. I felt a despair I had never felt before. I banged on the door so hard that my hand hurt. I tried to push the 2 metal plates with my feet, with my shoulder, until I got tired. Then I sat on the floor and started crying quietly. Not because I thought I was going to die there, but because I realized that no one was listening to me. At some point I fell asleep or passed out. I don't know. When you woke up, my body was stiff, all sweaty, and the air felt lighter, a little cooler. The noise that woke me up was voices, people talking outside. At first I thought I was dreaming, but then came the sound of tools clanging, the metal vibrating. It was the maintenance crew. I opened my eyes and saw light coming through a larger crack in the door. One of them shouted that they were already opening it. It took a few minutes, until they managed to force the elevator down half a floor. When the door finally opened, the brightness blinded me. I tried to get up, but my legs wouldn't obey. The only thing I could say was, someone was walking outside, but no one was opening it. It was the first sentence that came out, and I repeated it about 10 times without stopping. They took me to the hospital. Severe dehydration, they said. I was kept under observation until the next day. But what struck me most was the technicians' expressions when they came to check the system. They told me that the elevator was stuck between the 7th and 8th floors because of an electrical fault, and that the entire building had a power surge during the early morning hours. No cameras recorded anything in the hallways between midnight and 5 a.m. The lights were off. They assured me that no one was walking outside at that time. I went home 2 days later. The elevator was shut down as a precaution. And to this day, every time I pass through the hall, I hear that click of the door closing. My body freezes. My mind goes back to that feeling of heat, of tightness, of being trapped between two floors, hearing footsteps that shouldn't be there. The building manager told me that when they found me, I was sitting on the floor, looking at the blank panel, repeating the same thing quietly. There was someone walking outside, but no one opened the door. The elevator in this building has always been a little scary. It was one of those old pantograph door elevators that you have to pull yourself. The gate and then close. The kind of elevator that makes too much noise, that shakes when it stops on the floor, that always has that smell of old things. But it was what we had, and we got used to it, especially because the building is small, only 3 floors, and most of the residents have been there for a long time. I grew up hearing this story, the one about the boy who disappeared. Donna Alzira, who lives on the 2nd floor, was his mother. She still is, right? But it's been more than 20 years. At the time, I was a child too, just a little older. I was about 12 or 13 years old. I remember the day he disappeared as if it were yesterday. It was a Saturday morning. His name was Cake. He was 9 years old. He always wore a red cap with a star embroidered on the front. He was a smart boy, but quiet. He'd like to draw in the hole while his mother did laundry in the building's laundry room. That day, his mother got distracted for a few minutes. She said he was going to play on the ground floor, and when she went out to get him, he was gone. Nobody. She went up and down the entire building. She called, shouted, cried. The doorman said he had seen the boy entering the elevator alone, but the elevator was stopped on the ground floor with the door open, and nobody saw him leaving. The police came, of course. They searched the neighborhood, looked at security cameras on the street, knocked on every door, but the conclusion was that he must have left through the front door, which was unlocked that week, gotten lost, as if it were easy for a 9-year-old child to disappear in the middle of Curitiba without anyone seeing. That's what remained, a poorly explained disappearance. But for those who live here, this story was never forgotten. Mrs. Alzira never moved, never changed the door lock, never touched his room. To this day, her apartment smells of mothballs and stored things. She aged badly, walks with a somewhat crooked body, a low voice, doesn't talk much, but greets people. And the elevator, well, the elevator remained there. Somewhat it was rickety, but working. For many years, no one spoke of the matter again until now. This year, the building underwent renovations. They will replace all the electrical and structural parts, including the elevator. They sent a technical team to assess the structure and dismantle everything. They did a thorough inspection, and that's when the matter resurfaced. The elevator shaft is over 10 meters deep. There's a trapdoor on the ground floor that's never opened. On the 2nd day of dismantling, the crew needed to remove the old cables. One of the technicians went down there with a rope and a helmet. I was going down the stairs when I saw him coming back up with a strange look on his face. He was holding something in his hand. They called the building manager and asked the owner to come down. It was the cap. Cake's red cap. The same one, without a scratch, without dirt, intact, as if it had been left there that week. I don't know how to explain it. Nobody knows. The new caretaker, who wasn't even the same one from back then, later commented to the residents that it didn't make sense. The bottom of the shaft was dry, dirty, full of dust and grease. The cap was clean, completely clean, and the internal label with his name was still attached. Mrs. Alzira picked it up and stood there. He didn't say anything, just looked at his cap as if he had woken up from a long sleep. Then he went upstairs slowly and didn't leave the house again. From then on, everything changed again. The new elevator is almost ready, but this week it jammed 3 times, always on the 1st floor, which is where Mrs. Alzira lives. The technician said it was a problem with the control panel, but when they checked, there was no fault registered. The cabin simply stopped. The building manager decided to reconnect the old one while they adjusted the new one, and then it got worse. The old elevator, even after being turned off, started making cracking noises during the night. Some residents heard the gate move on its own. Another resident, Clara, from the ground floor, swore she heard someone calling from the shaft when she passed through the hall at 2 a.m. But there was no haunting. Nobody saw a ghost, or a child, or a shadow. The terror doesn't come from that. What really gets to us is this feeling that everything was left unresolved. That we lived for over 20 years in a building with a history like that and pretended everything was fine. We saw his mother getting sick, losing her sparkle, and we kept going up and down that elevator as if nothing had happened, as if there wasn't a void right beneath us. After they found the cap, the whole building was different. We pretended that life went on as usual, but it didn't. It was as if someone had lifted a rug that no one wanted to look under anymore. Even the noise of the front gate started to bother us. The sound of the chains, the old elevator gate, everything seemed out of place. Some residents tried to rationalize. They said it could be a similar cap, that someone might have thrown it there unintentionally, that it was just a coincidence. But no one really believed that. Not even the building manager, who had always been skeptical about everything, felt comfortable after that. He ordered the shaft's security to be reinforced, sealed with a padlock, and even installed a camera pointed directly at the elevator door. In the following days, problems with the new elevator began. The equipment was from a modern company with motion sensors, an anti-vandalism system, cameras, everything. But for some reason, the elevator would get stuck on the first floor. The sun would stop there between the ground floor and the first floor, with the interior light on and the door closed. It wasn't a power outage or a system malfunction. The company was called 3 times. They reset everything, replaced parts, tested it with weight. It worked. Then, out of nowhere, it would get stuck again, always at night, always at the same spot. There was one night when I was stuck for almost 20 minutes alone, with the light flashing, no cell phone signal. And even though I knew it was just a technical error, at that moment stuck between 2 floors. Looking at that steel door, all that came to my mind was Cake, 9 years old, lost inside alone. And now, as an adult, my legs are still trembling. No one said it out loud, but everyone thought, what if he had never left? The building manager tried to calm things down, called a meeting in the building's common room. But no one showed up except the oldest residents. That's when the new caretaker said that when they dismantled the old structure, they saw handprints on a spot on the inner wall of the well. Small marks, but since there was already a lot of dust and grease, it was impossible to tell if they were recent or old. No one took a picture, no one made a report. Te Hust, so commented, and continued dismantling. Mrs. Azira, after grabbing her hat, locked herself in her house. People tried to contact her. They brought food, knocked on the door, left notes. She didn't answer. They only knew she was still there because of the sounds. Toilet flushing, water running, footsteps. A week later, she went down. No one saw her. The camera caught her at 5 a.m., leaving with a purse and a bag of flip-flops, without makeup, without looking back. She took the old elevator, the same one her son used, and left through the front door. She never returned. The apartment has been empty ever since. The building manager tried to contact a relative, but it seems she has no one alive anymore. The real estate agency was contacted, but so far they haven't decided what to do. The furniture is all still there. The boy's room is intact. The window is ajar. One day, a strong wind blew and slammed her apartment door shut. The noise echoed throughout the entire hallway. It startled everyone. It sounded like a scream. In recent months, some residents have moved out. Younger people who didn't know the story started talking about the elevator locking itself, as if it were just a curiosity. But those who have lived here for a long time feel differently. We've learned not to talk about it, not to mess with it, but we also don't go in alone anymore. Some people take the stairs, even though they live on the 3rd floor. And the strangest thing is that no one has ever found any technical error again. The new elevator does get stuck, but only occasionally, only on its floor, never with the same residents. There are no hauntings, nobody hears voices, nobody sees shadows, nothing like in the movies. But the truth is that everyone here knows that something was never resolved. Something got stuck down there. I don't know if it was just the hat, or if it was the blame, or if it was the poorly told story that we accepted so as not to get involved. Nowadays, when the elevator gets stuck, nobody panics anymore. Nobody screams. Nobody bangs. They just wait. But nobody feels at ease. Because living in a place where a boy disappeared and the elevator never stopped working changes the way you step on the ground. And there are days when it seems like the elevator doesn't just stop, it chooses. Now it seems like that emptiness is closer. The elevator stopped suddenly with a sharp jolt, and I felt my body jump forward. I had just left my office on the 18th floor. It was Friday, raining heavily outside, and I just wanted to get to my car and leave. The building was almost empty. You could even hear the sound of the rain hitting the hallway windows. I got into the elevator alone, pressed the ground floor button, and watched the number going down. 17, 16, 15. All normal, until, between the ground floor and the basement, the elevator jolted and stopped. At the time, I thought it would start working again, but everything was quiet. The light didn't go out, it just started flickering, leaving the cabin with a kind of yellowish, sickly tone. I tried to take a deep breath and press the emergency button, but the intercom was silent. Not even a hiss. Nothing. I picked up my cell phone, which had no signal. Tried turning on 4G. Changing position, raising my arm. Nothing. I could hear the sound of rain coming from very far away, as if it were inside a pipe, and the sound of the elevator fan struggling to turn. In the first few minutes, I tried to stay calm. I sat in the corner, looked at the panel, kept pressing the buttons, thinking that maybe it would unlock, but the panel seemed dead. After about 20 minutes, I started to feel the air heavy and hot. There was a smell of rust coming from the floor, mixed with dampness. I looked up and saw that something was dripping from the ceiling, like a leak coming from the floor above. The floors started to get damp, the soles of my shoes making a wet noise when I moved. I tried to talk to myself, saying it will be all right. Someone will notice soon. But time didn't pass. I looked at my cell phone clock every 5 minutes. It felt like time didn't exist in there. After almost an hour, I didn't know what to do anymore. The noise from the building had changed. It seemed muffled, more distant, as if I wasn't inside a building anymore, but buried underneath it. Then came the sound. 3 sharp knocks from under me. At first, I thought it was the maintenance crew. I stood up quickly and yelled that someone was trapped. I waited for a response. Nothing. Just silence. And then the knocks again, louder. I took a step back, my heart racing. The sound was coming from under the cabin, right under my feet. I crouched down a little, trying to listen, and that's when I heard a different noise, like something being dragged down there. I yelled again, asked for help, begged someone to answer. No voice, no echo, just the metal of the elevator vibrating slightly, as if someone were touching it from the outside. I stood still for a while, trying to figure out if it was all in my head. Then, I gathered my strength and tried to open the door. I managed to force open a crack. I could see a dark part of the shaft, but it wasn't normal darkness. It seemed like a stuffy place. The air was hot, with a strong smell of mold and iron. I called again, and what I heard was the sound of water running, as if someone was moving down there. I slammed the door shut and huddled in a corner. The noise stopped for a few minutes, but then it came back, only further away, as if it were going away. I don't know how long I stayed there. I only remember waking up to a man's voice calling me in the morning. When I managed to answer, he told me not to move, that they were going to open it. And that's where the strangest part happened. When the rescue team arrived, I had already lost track of time. I only remember hearing the sound of voices and metal being forced open. They told me not to try to open anything, that they were going to unlock it from above. The light was already very dim, and the air was heavy as if the elevator had no ventilation. When they managed to open it, the door was about 30 centimeters above the basement floor. One of the men held out his hand, but I couldn't climb up at first. My legs were trembling. It felt like I had forgotten how to walk. When I got out, I felt the cold air of the parking lot and the strong smell of oil. There was water accumulated on the floor, and you could see that the elevator had stopped about 60 centimeters from the level. One of the technicians commented that the shaft was almost full and that the night's ace rain had flooded everything. While I was trying to calm down, leaning against the wall, I heard the maintenance guy ask the other, "Who left this down there?" I looked in the direction he was pointing. There was a piece of soaked, brownish fabric floating in the dark water of the shaft. He used a tool to pull it out, and it was an old maintenance uniform with the badge still attached to the pocket. One of the security guards approached to see the name and turned pale. He whispered that that employee had died there years ago in an accident while changing the elevator cable. Nobody said anything else. Only one of them commented that they should have taken off their uniforms at the time, but that perhaps they got caught in the structure. Even so, the way everyone looked at the well wasn't normal. I stood there, watching that dark water moving slowly and hearing the sound of dripping water falling inside. They asked if I had opened the door during the night. I said yes, that I had seen something moving. They looked at each other, somewhat unsure what to say. One of the technicians explained that the well had short-circuited and that I had probably heard the water hitting the metal parts. But the sound I heard wasn't of water hitting, it was of someone moving. I left there, accompanied by one of the security guards. In the parking lot, my car was covered in dust and leaves. It looked like I hadn't used it in days. He asked if I was okay. He just nodded. In the following days, I tried to go back to work, but I couldn't get into any elevator anymore. I even climbed the stairs twice to the 5th floor, sweating, trembling, but I froze just hearing the sound of the cable.